So we're live. Good morning. Good morning. It's Conversations with Compassion. We're back properly. In the last over Christmas and New Year, it's been a little bit kind of, 1 week and then a break, 1 week and then a break. So we're back, and it's me. It's Helen Ferguson. I'm so glad to be back and back in my French house, but not for long. And if you don't know me, if you've not come across me before, I'm a specialist trauma therapist, and I work specifically with high-achieving, high-performing entrepreneurial business and professional women who are highly successful in their business, but are carrying the narrative of trauma around with them. The trauma of childhood trauma, attachment trauma, developmental trauma, sexual abuse. And then what I do is I help them not just be successful in their business, but embody that success within themselves and shed that narrative of trauma. So that's what I do. And Conversations with Compassion came about because practically every single woman that I've worked with, and men, I work occasionally with men, say to me that self-compassion is lazy, self-compassion is self-indulgent, it's narcissistic, it's about ego. And I, in the room, in that therapeutic way, in that therapeutic sessions, really help them understand about how empowering self-compassion is, that it's the antidote to shame and it's the antidote to trauma. And so I do that in the room, but actually I wanted to bring that conversation out of the room and into the conversation with lots of wonderful women that I know, that I've come across, that I've kind of, email them and say, would you like to be a guest? And I'm so excited to have Emma with me this morning. We have had a stop-start. Me and Emma are trying to schedule this in, but I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm glad that we're here. Now. But I'm so excited to have Emma with us. So Emma, please take a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll get the conversation started.
Amazing. Thanks, Helen. Yeah, it is. I think it's the third time, but obviously it was meant to be when it was meant to be. So yeah, I'm Emma Clayton, and I'm a business strategist, and I help women to enter self-employment from the corporate world and then grow and scale their businesses above just themselves, which I see lots of women holding themselves back and playing a bit smaller because they have to run the business next to their family and they think that they can't have it all. So I teach them that they can. I'm also a gender pay gap expert, and I'm currently running a campaign around the underbelly of the gender pay gap, which is the 43% gap in how women that are self-employed charge against their male counterparts. So you'll see lots of me across the year with that campaign. So that's what I do.
Brilliant. We have Facebook user. Good morning. I don't know who Facebook user is. So if you could just let me know your name, that would be fab. But what you do is amazing, Emma, and I follow you on Instagram, as you know, and I love all of what you're doing. It's Sarah Thomas. Sarah Thomas is with us. Yay!
Hi,
Sarah. It's great to have you with us, Sarah. Emma, like I said, I really, I'm aligned with what with your work and what you're doing, and it's wonderful that you're able to share that here with us today, but also kind of share yourself with us today. And if I can start the conversation off by kind of asking, what does self-compassion mean for you, as a woman, as a mom, as an entrepreneur? What does it mean to you?
Well, what it means to me now, Helen, is very different to what it meant to me, I would say, about 18 months ago. So 18 months ago, I was your typical, one of your clients. So I was, I'd come from a corporate world. I was traveling the world. I was a single mom. I was thinking that I had to be everything to all people, carrying my own trauma through childhood and, not being able to ask for help. It was a sign of weakness. And I didn't know what self-compassion was. I thought, it was not lazy or self-indulgent, but I didn't have time. I just did not have time. I just thought, I've got all this stuff to do. And as, all of us women do, we come at the bottom, and that's what happened. And self-compassion to me now is actually putting me at the top. I learned a very hard lesson at the end of 2020 that I had to. And, you know, it is likened to that analogy of, you know, when you're on the plane, they tell you to put the gas mask on. And I always thought, of course, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it on my child. And then when someone explained to me that you're better for the child if you put your gas mask on first, suddenly I thought, God, that makes so much more sense. And it's self-compassion is like that now. So self-compassion to me now is very different to how it was. And I guess now it's about finding the time to breathe, finding the time to, you know, if I get feelings or I get, you know, those moments in my body where I think that just doesn't sit right, you know, I explore it. I don't suppress it and think, oh, you know, we've still got to crack on. I really take care of the mind, body and soul element so that I know that everything that I am involved in emotionally or physically or, you know, even with other people in community is aligned to me, because it's very unhealthy when you're not doing things that are aligned to you. And also you get the space. So I take a lot more space for myself, whether it's just sitting and, you know, do I dare say this, playing Candy Crush on my phone for 20 minutes because I find it.
You can say it. You can say it, it's fine.
Really therapeutic. I mean, I used to be addicted to that thing when I was, you know, in my 30s. But yeah, so it's just taking the time out of what I do. You know, the single, you know, everybody wants a piece of you when you're working, whether you're in corporate or self-employed. Everybody wants a piece of you. So self-compassion now is about saying, well, I want a piece of me as well. So yeah, so that's what it means to me now.
And self-compassion should be, I want the main piece of me now. Yeah. You know, not just
who you are. You know,
sorry?
Who am I? It's finding out that who am I, you know, and almost realigning. And it came for me to sort of crash and burn, to rebalance and, you know, almost like from a phoenix come out as well, you know, who am I and what do I stand for? And what are the things that I'm really not going to tolerate anymore? What are the things that I'm going to like totally invest in? And as a result, I feel like I'm giving myself compassion because I'm not trying to be everything everybody wants me to be. I'm being me.
Yeah. And what you just described is also putting your boundaries in, is actually understanding who you are. And when it's interesting that you say that, because again, this week I was having a conversation with someone else, and she was asking how I work, and I thought, well, this kind of, you know, it's not complicated, but it was a longer discussion. But one of the things that I do is I ask women to describe for me who they are, and often I hear the labels, you know, I'm mum, I'm business owner, I'm partner, I'm mother, I'm daughter, I'm sister, I'm, you know, so there's the labels. And I say, oh, they're really wonderful labels. Let's put them to one side. Who are you?
It's really difficult for women to come out with that.
Yeah, because often what happens, and really what happens is that we start to be defined by those labels and forget who we are. And being able to have that breath, that moment, that pause of saying, who am I? And actually answering the question is self-compassion. It's empowering. Yeah. It's an extraordinary process. And so, you know, hearing you say it's a breath, you know, it's being able to breathe. It absolutely is. It's being able to breathe into yourself, to listen to your body, to listen to you, and really define who you are, but actually then say, what do I want and what do I need?
Absolutely. And I think we tend not to, I mean, obviously I'm surrounded by lots of people similar age to me, but we tend not to be able to do this until we're well into our 40s.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you know, we're conditioned, you know, go to school, get a job, go to uni, get the job, you know, do everything that the corporate world says that we've got to do. And we have to fit this mold to fit in. And, you know, I have to please these people. And suddenly you sort of hit 40 and go, I'm not doing this anymore. No.
Yeah. That'll be a no.
I'm bent. No. Yeah. And often it's really sad. I mean, it was the case for me. And when I open and share about this with other people, they say, gosh, you know, that was me too. But, and you'll see this with all your clients, you know, it sometimes takes too long to find that. And we get into a moment where we are literally unable to tolerate this anymore. We're in crisis, we're in burnout, we've gone down the wrong alley and we're too scared to say, I've made a mistake, or please can someone help me? And we think, that we can't express that vulnerability. And then it's too late and we're in too deep. And then, we've really, really got to start looking at things differently, which is obviously what you do, which is amazing.
And you and I were talking before we came on live, and I was saying, a lot of women come to me in crisis because they've been doing all the doing, and they've been focused on that, absolutely wanting to achieve success, sorting their, being successful in their business, building their business, taking it up, leveling it, doing the next course, doing the next course, doing the next course, doing the next course, being mum, being partner, being everything, but to themselves.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. And so the crisis is that burnout, is that emotional overwhelm, is when there is just no space to be able to do anything else. And so, my mission is that women don't wait for crisis, don't, notice it before. That's my mission, that's my passion, to get women to really kind of focus on this before it reaches their crisis point.
And there are
some men that work with me too. And it can be done if you listen to yourself, if you absolutely listen to what you need. And part of that is self-compassion. You listen to what you need, if you notice, if you respond, then you say to yourself, yes, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
I'm going to put it there. Yeah.
There are strategies as well that you can put in place to try and prevent this. And this is part of why I'm so passionate about helping women set up their businesses the right way, and why I am campaigning on this self-employed gender pay gap, because we keep working because we're trying to keep our head above water financially. But actually, if we just stepped into the recognition of our value, and I hate the word the worth, I think your worth is still incredible regardless of what you charge. Put that to one side. Your worth is your worth. You are amazing as you are, and you are worthy. But the value that you can bring in your business, or actually even in your employment, what is that? And that's what guys are really great at doing. And as women, we are, I'll just put up with that. That's fine, because as long as I can have time with the kids. And actually what that's perpetuating is, to be able to keep your head above water and pay the bills, you've then got to work longer and harder and faster and spin more plates. So what I try and do is get people to sort of see the end goal and work backwards, and do it in a much calmer way than I did it. I mean, this is how I burnt out, because I just literally never stopped, and I was chasing the next thing and the next financial goal, and so many clients, and totally forgot about my own health. Really, it was just non-existent until it was too late. And so that's, there are strategies, and I think if we can start to elevate women's value in the marketplace, employed or self-employed, then it gives us a much greater chance that we can balance, and for the same money we can work less hours, and we can create more sort of space for ourselves. So I think you and I think very similarly, obviously just with very different ways. And sadly, it's too late when they come to you, and it's being able to reach out to you sooner, but also have the strategies in the first place.
It's what I would say is it's never too late. It's never too late. And people, even women that have come to me and they're at the point where they can't even look at me, or they're unable to kind of speak, but they've managed to click, on the Zoom and everything else, but they're there with me, and their feeling is it's too late. But it's not too late if you've clicked on Zoom, if you've messaged someone, if you've said I need this. It's never too late to stand confidently in your own self-worth and your value. You've just got to give yourself the time and space to be able to find it, to embody it, to acknowledge that it is there. And actually some of the things that we're carrying around are the narratives of other people. and we don't have to live by them.
Yeah.
You don't have to live by the narrative of trauma, you know. If I'd have done that, then I wouldn't be sat here now. You know, I would have been in a dark corner somewhere rocking, you know. But you don't have to live by that. It's not your narrative, for a start. It's somebody else's narrative. It's just one that's become embedded in you, and you think that you can't do anything about it. Well, I'm all about saying yes, you can. And I remember, one woman sitting with me and saying, how do you know? Well, her first question was, do you think I can feel any differently than I do now? And I said, yes. And she said, how do you know? And I said, because you're looking at someone who's done it. You're not just looking at someone that has done all the training and the skills and the this and the that and the, you know, so you're actually looking at someone who's been through this. And I described mine. And that's when she was able to then start the work, because just to know that you don't have to live by that. It's never too late, even in your 40s and your 50s. And I've worked with women in their 60s who are only just having flashbacks to their trauma, their childhood trauma. And they think it's too late. It's never too late. It's never too late if you say to yourself, I'm going to do this for me. And I'm going to stop all the doing and the doing and the doing for everybody else. And I'm going to give myself more value than I give something else.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think, when you talk about narrative as well, there is a narrative that we have, that our trauma gives us, that the people around us give us, that we have for ourselves. We tell ourselves, I'm not good at that, or I can't do that, or it's okay for you, you've got this, and I haven't got that confidence, or whatever. We're our worst critics. We speak to ourselves like we would never speak to anybody else.
Yeah.
But there's also this narrative, this patriarchal narrative. We're still very much in a culture of breadwinner, homemaker. And we saw this in the pandemic, wherever you were in the world, the women took the lion's share. And we went back to the 1930s. We homeschooled, we, had to take care of everything. And even in the house, I was hearing stories of partners, the women still had to, cut their hours. I had a business actually that was, the whole business model was freelance women who had left the corporate world because the model didn't work for them, and they didn't want that 9 to 5, and they didn't want to be going into the big agencies in London. So just really incredibly talented women were coming to work with me. And part of my burnout was because my whole business model fell apart with the pandemic, because as much as clients are wanting to work with us, and the business demand went off the scale, I couldn't resource it because my model was around all these incredible women that had to just stop working. And I'd sort of say, well, who's looking after the kids? And they say, well, it's all down on me. And so we really went back into this incredibly archaic system, and we still have it. And, I know people are making strides, but it does not help our mental, emotional well-being when we want to try and earn money. We want to try and excel ourselves and do the things that inspire us. But we're also taking care of everything else. And that doesn't help and contribute to great well-being if we think we've got to do it all and work 24 hours a day trying to do it. So I think just trying to break some of those bigger narratives.
And being able to kind of give yourself permission to do that, and rather than thinking that you have to go along with that narrative, it's giving yourself permission and gifting yourself the permission, because the one thing that we all have is choice.
Do you work with people on guilt? Because guilt is a big thing as well. The guilt of, hang on a minute, everybody's judging me for being a working parent and leaving my kids in, full-time nursery or whatever, or I'm not present with the kids because I've got to do that late night assignment. Is that something you help with? Because I see that.
Because guilt and shame are intrinsically linked. They are, of course, separate beings in their own right. So there's like 9 types of guilt. But the guilt and shame are kind of, when you look at the kind of shame, the interactive repair cycle, for example, you have to feel guilt in order to interactively repair, when you have done something wrong. What happens with shame and guilt when they become slightly, intrinsically linked is is that shame becomes the predominant feeling, the predominant emotion, and it kind of, goes in ebbs and flows. So when you feel that you are a bad person, so shame is I am bad, shame is I am not good enough, guilt is I did something wrong. So when you have I am bad and therefore I am not good enough for that person or that job, that relationship, that whatever I'm doing, then you have a mess, for want of a better word. So what you have to do is deconstruct the shame. You have to, and it is generally through self-compassion that we do this. There is a lot, I also do a lot with the body and the somatic experiencing, and certainly where there's been, in terms of attachment and childhood trauma, the somatic attachment healing and things like that. So, but shame and guilt, when they have come from a story, when they've come from an experience, when they've come from a period in your life, a person in your life, that you then own. You then end up owning what should be their shame and guilt. And so it becomes your narrative. So what I do is I help people shed that narrative.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think that's just so needed, because we all have these wonky narratives, don't we?
Oh, the narratives, some of the ones that I hear, and I'm like, and I'm actually, literally, I'm a very expressive person in the therapy room. Anybody that's worked with me will know that. And I'm kind of, I do the kind of, it's just kind of, and there's a lot of things that I will not say, and people will go, yeah, I know what you're thinking, Helen. Yeah, I need to rethink this. I need to do this. And actually, Sarah's bravely kind of said, you've helped me beyond recognition in the last 12 months, Helen. I've been working with Sarah over the last year. And thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. It's wonderful that you have. And, she will know that, she would have started saying something, and I'll go, do we want to think about that differently? So it is all about reframing. It is all about not owning what isn't yours.
That's so important. Yeah.
Across the board. Own what isn't yours. Why would you own what isn't yours? And I was talking to somebody, a client this week, who's only just started working with me, and it's a man. I occasionally work with men because they get through the pink branding, and I will work with men if I feel that what they're experiencing is aligned with the work that I provide, and that we can have a fairly robust relationship, because I will challenge people in the therapy space. And so, I don't, it's not in a bad way. don't challenge people to a fight or anything, but, I will challenge them. So I need to know that people will be able to respond to that. And he was saying himself that, he was owning, he described everything that he was saying about himself. And I said, what, he literally wrote them all down for me. And I said, why are you saying this to yourself? And he said, do you know what? When I wrote it down, I actually don't know. I don't know why I'm owning that. This isn't the way that I want to talk to myself. This isn't the way that I want to feel. And I said, so why are you doing it? It was a simple question. He said, why? So I said, why are you doing it? And he said, I just don't know how to think differently about myself. I said, right, okay. Then that's the first task. That's our first task, is to get you to shift that self-criticism, to look at the judgment that you've been holding about yourself. And he's a great guy. He's owns several restaurants around Europe. And he was, but you wouldn't think, looking at him and his success, that he would have been feeling this way, that he would have been carrying that trauma. He has a medical trauma, so he's been carrying that medical trauma with him. And so, working with him around that, and him, anybody around him, and he said this, anybody around me thinks that I'm confident, I've got, I'm brilliant at what I do, I have loads of self-worth. And he said, and I write all this down and I realize that's crap. And message out.
It's interesting because I see a lot of successful people. Some of the most successful people are the ones that have come from incredible trauma, and the success has come from, I'm not good enough, so I need to keep going. And those that haven't burnt out, or the wheels have fallen off at some point, there is that real, and it probably is childhood trauma where they've been made to feel in some way that they're not good enough, so they've had that screw you attitude, and they've kept the teacher that's told them they'll never make anything of themselves, or the child that was left by their parent, or the baby of the family that was always sort of ignored. It's those people that rise up and say, or that were bullied at school, or and that have learned this incredible amount of resilience on top of this trauma and sort of suppressed it, and then they go on. But what's really interesting is that the most successful people also say it comes at the cost of not looking after their emotional well-being, because they've become so crafted at suppressing that trauma and creating this positive aspect of resilience that actually they're still not happy. And creating success, but they're just not creating any fulfillment. And I find that fascinating.
And that's when what you work with is the narrative. That's with the narrative that has led them to that point. And certainly, kind of, you're absolutely right. Certainly, a lot of the people that I call friends, that are colleagues of mine, that I have worked with over the years, as well as clients, have a history of childhood trauma and complex trauma. And so, they are completely and utterly driven down a very academic path, very a path of validation, a path of external validation. And that's that's what I always describe it to people as. It's an external validation. And actually, any therapeutic work around trauma is about bringing the validation back to you. The only person, it's why my program, my therapeutic program, my 3-month program is called the Heart of Healing Trauma. Everybody thinks that means that I'm the Heart of Healing Trauma, and I say no. The Heart of Healing Trauma is you, because it will be you that evolves, that transforms, that listens to yourself, that puts the work in, that brings yourself validation, because it comes from within. It doesn't come from externally. But if you've had a history of not having your needs met, of those needs being met dysfunctionally, of being ignored, of being bullied, of being emotionally neglected, psychologically neglected, physically neglected, you won't know how to, you won't know how to experience that validation for yourself. You will always be looking for that externally, unless you give yourself the space, give yourself the breathing space, give yourself the pause to be able to work on yourself, to bring that to yourself. Because the narrative has been that if you've been neglected, you're still looking for love. You're still looking for that from somebody else, and it has to come from inside. But if you have a narrative that says that you're not worthy enough because you were sexually abused, or that you were neglected, or you were, I've worked with people where their trauma was pre-verbal, so they've got no words for the feeling that they have. And I said, well, you don't have to have the words. We have to work with the feeling. And they said, well, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know. And then we explore a bit, and then I understand that their trauma was pre-verbal. So if you have that, you have this narrative that is one of need and seeking and not receiving. So you then step into a kind of place of, well, I have to have that need met somewhere else and somehow else. And often that is through burying ourselves into books and burying ourselves into work and burying ourselves into business and the doing and the doing and the doing and even relationships that then, you know, we can't quite figure out how to be in them, and we're constantly waiting for them either to be destroyed or the person to walk away, or sabotaging them ourselves because we don't know how to manage them. So it's a really complicated, I realise I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but it's a really kind of, you know, complicated web and narrative that is then spun around us to say, you know, and so we get stuck in that. And then we go, and then we reach burnout and we go, oh, hang on.
Yeah.
There's me.
And actually, yeah, and the statistics. So I trained as a positive psychology coach last year because I was fascinated in all of
I know, well done.
Love it. But the science and the statistics actually show that happy people do become even more successful because they generate this sort of aura and vibe and positivity, and it sort of draws the best of things to them. And that actually was one of the things that really helped me go through. In fact, I actually explored positive psychology when I hit my burnout, and then loved it so much that I actually trained as a coach in it, because I can see how it can really help other women, you know, more on what I do with the business side and the pay gap side. And it really does. And, you know, it's not just about positive emotions, think happy, think happy, think happy, think happy. You know, it's about, you know, who am I?
Positivity for a start.
Yeah, because all that does is it just links out everywhere else. But, you know, it's kind of just going back to basics. You know, who am I? What am I good at? What do I love? Who are the people I want to be around? What are the things that light me up? You know, what are the goals I can set but then achieve? Because, you know, that gives you that positive reinforcement, and you build your confidence. And I just found that so incredibly powerful for me. And that's why I then sold that business, because I realized I'd been in that industry for way too long, and it was it was pharmaceuticals and medical and healthcare that I was in for over 23 years, and it was so restrictive. It is the most highly regulated in whatever you think of the pharmaceutical industry. It is the most highly regulated.
It's regulated, yeah.
And I'm a creative and I'm a strategic minded person, and I'd always come up with solutions. Oh no, you can't do that. You can't do that. So I was like, okay, this is the time for me to now leave. And then this is why I now do what I do and help women to create this happily, positively, and not the way that I did it, where it was this perpetual. So I do think that, you know, when you find those aspects, it really does help you sort of realign and just get out of the, maybe not so much for those that are really in huge deep trauma, but it does help you sort of really see perspective and become self-compassionate, because you're playing to your strengths and your needs.
Absolutely. And that, you know, because self-compassion isn't just about one thing. It's not just about kind of self-kindness, for example. You know, it's not just about mindfulness. It is also about connectedness. And that connectedness is not just to ourselves, but also to the things that bring us value, the people that bring us value. And
we start better in relationships when we know who we are and what we like and don't like. We are better in our relationships, which then gives even greater fulfillment, you know.
Absolutely. So self-compassion is just like this amazing thing, which I think people, and through these conversations, it's just nice to be able to, it's more than nice, it's wonderful to be able to kind of bring it, you know, really kind of out into the open. Now, we have a comment from Facebook user. I don't know whether this is Elizabeth or Sarah, okay, because I know that both of them are Facebook user at the moment. If I catch myself talking to me in a non-compassionate way, I stop and change the narrative and therefore the situation and how it makes me feel. Absolutely. That you have to catch your thinking, because what will happen is there'll be a hook. So there'll be an experience, there'll be an episode, there'll be a statement, there'll be a something that happens, and there'll be a hook, and you'll hook into that, and that hook then takes you down, can potentially take you down that non-self-compassionate, judgmental, self-critical, route. If you catch that thought before it hooks on, you can change the narrative. So you have to pause. So I always remind people that, you know, our response, our reaction to a situation is impulsive. Our response to it is our choice. The pause in between the reaction and the response is where you get the chance to be curious, to breathe, to say, actually, that's not the way I want to talk to myself. I'm not going to be led down that path. That's a narrative that might have happened previously. So all the things that you've just described, it was Sarah, you catch yourself so that old narrative doesn't hook on, and then you're led down, and you're then at the end of a day kind of going, oh, well, it's all crap and I don't know what to do. So that pause in between the reaction and the response is where you get to make your choice. It's where you get to be influenced by self-compassion, by self-awareness, by self-acceptance, and to say, no, this is the way I want it to be, and that's your response, and that's your choice.
Yeah, amazing.
Hugely powerful. So I realise, you know, Emma, I did have questions, but actually I think through the conversation we have explored those, but without me actually asking them, which is always a nice thing. But how do you embrace self-compassion now? Because you're kind of, you know, you're really successful. You're a mom. You're doing all the things. You're doing it. You know, you're doing brilliantly. And so, how do you make sure that you don't disappear down the self-criticism route and the judgmental route? How do you embrace self-compassion?
Well, I can't say that I've nailed it still, because
you never nail it. I'm just going to say, you never nail it.
You never nail it, but I've got techniques, which, you know, the first thing is that I always think, you know, what is the worst case here? And, you know, I used to like almost predict that failure was on its way. So I'd always look at the strategies of how I could get over it, which is why I was always really successful in business, but not particularly successful in looking after myself. I now just have this whole mantra of, you know, I guess I've tapped into a little bit of spirituality. I wouldn't say that I'm very woo, but I think I really like the essence of spirituality and the thinking around life is happening for you. And that, you know, at the moment I've got some health challenges, and I kind of think, you know, I'm going to lean into this because there's a lesson in here. There's something here that I need to take. And so I have this real growth mindset about problems. And that comes from just knowing that I have had lots of difficulties and I've got through them, and I'm still alive and breathing. I've got a, you know, incredibly well-rounded, adjusted girl, you know, 13-year-old now that I've raised single-handedly. Like, I look and I think, you know, I can do what I put my mind to. And if my mind is telling me all this nonsense, I'm never going to be able to do it. So I just think that it will be what it will be, and there's a reason for it, and actually better things are on its way if the thing hasn't. So I sort of have that mindset now, and that really helps me with really tricky days. And I also noticed myself a lot more in sort of, I like do little bits of meditation, but I'm also very self-aware physiologically now of, you know, you get those butterfly feelings, or you get the surge when you're angry or whatever. And I really go, that's really interesting. Why am I reacting like that? And I just sort of journal down how I'm feeling, and then think, is this a story, or is this stress, or, you know, what's happening? And then I think, actually, you know, I've worked 2 long days, 12 hours, especially in the coaching business, when you're working, you know, globally, you know, the time is always calls at 8, 9 on a night, but you're up working from 8 in the morning. So I'm like, okay, so today I'm going to take 2 hours. I'm going to go out, I'm going to get some fresh air, and I'm going to take my dogs for a walk, and I'm going to ring some friends, or I'm going to listen to a podcast that really supports my well-being, not more business stuff. So I just try and add more flavor in, that it's not just like it used to be business. And I look at people's eyes now and talk to them and present with them and enjoy that conversation, rather than, you know, that sort of yes, sorry, I'll be with you, you know.
Yeah, so busy. Yeah, so busy. Yeah.
Just a minute, darling, I'll be with you. You know, when my daughter needs me, I stop and I'm there for her. And, you know, I get an incredible amount of pleasure. And Wednesday afternoons like today, you know, I'll go down and watch her do her matches, and that's really important. And I never used to do that. So the self-compassion for me is around just being more awake in my world.
Mm-hmm. And that's connection.
Yeah.
Everything that you've just described is connection.
Yeah.
And when, what we were describing at the beginning and through the conversation is disconnect.
Yeah.
And actually what self-compassion is, and what any therapeutic work is, I'm just going to put this out there. And I can say this because I'm an experienced and qualified therapist for over 22 years. All therapy work is about connection. All therapy work is about empowering you. All therapy work is about bringing that awareness back to yourself, and you feeling that you have a control over it, that you are empowered in it. And that's what you've just described, is this real connection, to yourself physically as well, because I always work with people about the felt body sense, because actually, we feel our emotions in our body before we're able to name them.
So true. And I've learned how to do that now. Yeah.
You've learned how to do that. Yeah. And we do the same in somatic attachment healing as well. It's kind of really focused on that. But the somatic experience, the felt body sense, is understanding the feeling in your body. And I meditate now in the morning and the evening. Never used to. It's too busy. But I do now. And, I really, I've always been very aware of the feelings in my body. If I feel sick, then there's a reason for that. It's not just about, I might have, I don't know, had a dodgy prawn. I don't know. But, if you're feeling sick, listen to that. If you feel tension here, listen to it. Don't just ignore it. And if you feel tension in your face, there's a reason for that. So connecting with the felt body sense is massively important. And that's what you've just described, which is wonderful. Yeah. Anna has said, because they're now telling me on a different comment thread who they are, because they're all Facebook users. So Anna said, I need this today. I need to remember the pause. Absolutely. Remember Anna. I've known Anna for a long time. She and I worked together actually for a long time. But, yes, I absolutely remember the pause. It is what we forget, because we go from reaction to response very quickly. So the pause is massively important, and remembering that your reaction is an impulse. Your reaction you have no control over. It's an unconscious impulse.
And the busier you are, the less time you have to pause. And then you make mistakes, and then you feel rubbish, and you perpetuate. So it's even as
and then you go into the shame cycle, then you go into the guilt cycle, then you go into the self-criticism cycle, then you go into it all. Yeah, absolutely. So the pause is hugely important. So, Anna, Sarah, Elizabeth, I know all three of you are watching. Yes, the pause, please remember it. Sarah's heard it all from me before. I constantly say pause. But yeah, and when I worked with children, because I started my working with people with trauma, and it was with children. And I remember, working with children who've been traumatized and abused is very, very challenging, because they can't verbalize what they've experienced. Often they can't verbalize, so they can't disclose in the same way, or don't disclose. My dogs are going to start barking, by the way, because Meals on Wheels have turned up for my neighbours. Just thought, there we go. On time.
Mine have been very quiet today, actually.
I was tempted not to put them in that room, but it's the Meals on Wheels van, so they're not going to stop. So I'm going to probably have to wrap this up very quickly. But working with children is actually with their body, with their felt body sense, with the non-verbal, and I use that now certainly in my work with adults and women. Is working with the non-verbal is crucial, and connecting with that. Yeah. So I was going the dogs distracted me, but there was a point to that. But it was kind of just reminding that there is a lot that you will experience that is nonverbal, that you're not able to say. You're not able to say, I feel this today. I feel sad. I feel frustrated. I feel stressed. But it's remembering that some of those emotions, some of those basic emotions, there are more complex emotions behind, and those are the ones that we have difficulty naming.
Yeah.
But being able to say, I feel this today. I feel this tension in my shoulders. I feel this tension in my neck. My jaw hurts. My heart hurts. I've had women say to me, my heart really hurts, and that's grief. That's often grief. But listening to all aspects of your body is all about understanding and connecting and being self-compassion. So sorry, I went off yet again on another tangent. I do apologize. So it has been a wonderful conversation, Emma. I've loved this conversation.
Me too.
If there was one, I do this to people and they kind of go, well, if there was, because I could give people tips, but I do in my freebie and I do in my group and all the things. But if there's one piece of advice you could give anyone listening now that has either been in your position or they are on the hamster wheel of, got to get things done. What's the one piece of advice that you would give them about connecting with their self-compassion?
Oh, gosh, there's so much. I think it's to open up. I definitely think the minute that I opened up and I sat with the people around me and said, I'm really struggling here, it's fascinating. They all said, yeah, we know. I'm like, what do you mean you know? And they were like, well, we've been watching you, but we couldn't intervene you. We knew how, you wanted to be the person, we didn't want to point out these fallibilities really. And so I do think it's just open up and have the conversation, because the people around you probably already know and they just are scared to approach it. And I think when you lean into it, you'll be amazed at the compassion that you get that allows you then to have self-compassion, especially if you're creating this through the external validation. You almost need the external validation that it's okay to open up, and then you'll come into the internal validation. So I think that was the one pivotal thing for me. I wish I'd have done it sooner,
but you've done it now.
I did it.
No regrets.
I haven't looked back. No way, no regrets. No, last year changed my life by doing that.
So always, I always reframe it. You might have wished you'd done it sooner, but no regrets. You've done it now and you're working forward. I'm always for a reframe, but it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of advice. And I think it's, it's absolutely, Leo agrees. Absolutely, I think it's Leo's signaling to me that I should end this, so he doesn't disrupt us anymore.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Helen. Thank you.
It's been wonderful, and thank you so much for taking the time, Emma. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, want to hear more about what you're doing? Where can they find you?
So I am on Instagram as Million Pound Mentor, although I'm soon to be changing that. And then I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me. I hang out on LinkedIn quite a lot. Emma Clayton, business strategist. And you'll find me on Facebook as well, I'm sure. But
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. And I think yet again another inspiring conversation. And I'm so glad that you gave us the time.
No, thank you.
And thank you, Sarah, Anna, Elizabeth. I know there was somebody else, but I don't know who else that was live, for joining us. This does go out. Obviously, people are able to watch on replay. It's on my YouTube channel. If you are a woman and you're a businesswoman, an entrepreneurial woman, and you are wanting to change the narrative that you're successful, but there is something just kind of holding you back about stepping into it, embodying it for yourself and embodying you for yourself, then I do have a free group. It's the Heart of Healing Alchemy. And it is relatively new. I only set it up just before Christmas. but you know, if you're watching this and you're not part of that group, please, you know, feel free to join. You can find it, you know, by having a search on Facebook, The Heart of Healing Alchemy, and come and join me. It's full of lots of support, advice, and compassionate practices, and conversations with compassion goes live in there too. So please, if you want to, it's my nurturing community for you. So I will leave it there. And Emma, thank you again. And I will see you all soon.